Morning again. My name is Stephen Boulden. I am taking over for Jeff this week as he is out of town in Wisconsin, and I will be helping you present about companies within ACT is this week's topic. Now, one of the companies are something that many people use in ACT. It's one of the more basic features, but unless you kind of knew how to set them up from the start, some people don't always use it in the proper way. What we're looking at here is a demo database of ACT, and this is a contact list. You're probably all very well familiar with this. Each contact over here in the left sidebar with an ACT, we have contacts and companies, and each contact record should represent an individual person. In this case, you know, the demo database has Christy Cameron here, or Haley, or Susie. These are all individual contacts that should go into ACT. Some people kind of have a practice of they'll put companies in there. If they don't know an individual's name, they'll sometimes put in just a company name. I actually found one here in the demo database that's called Skydiving. This would be an example of a bad contact record because it actually doesn't have an individual associated with it. If we go and look at some of these people from certain contacts, we'll see that the company name is hyperlinked here. This means that this contact is actually linked to a company. It's a little bit technical, but the way that the database is set up is that you can think of all of the data in ACT kind of in tables and rows, the same way that you would see a type of spreadsheet. Of course, it's all lying in an underwork framework called SQL. And there are different entities within ACT. Those are contacts, groups, companies, and opportunities. So contacts and companies are their own entity, so you could think of them as two separate tables with their own data written in them. And you want to be able to link your contacts into individual companies. I see we have some newcomers that just joined. Again, my name is Stephen Boulden. I'm filling in for Jeff this week as he is out of town, and we're going over some companies within ACT. And so the right way to set up a contact, when you have multiple contacts that are all from the same company, it's normally a great practice to create a company record and link them to it. We'll see here in the Parsley group, Parsley group is the name of the company, and each company record you can fill out some standard information like a phone number, a website, or an address, and there are contacts that are linked with that company below. It's a good idea to link them together because as I view a company record, I can see here that the contacts, everyone who works here is Will, Annabeth, John, and Jacques. And if I look under the notes, this is ACT's demo database they're giving me. There's not very many notes and histories in these. Let me find one of these that does. Right, if you're under Griping International, I see Jason, Howard, and Melissa. I can actually see a consolidated view of all of the histories and all of the notes for that company at once. Whereas if I was looking at just one person's record individually, let me find a good one here. If I look at just Chris Huffman's record, she only has one note written on her contact record. But if I look at her company, CH Tech 1, I could actually view all of the notes regarding every person from that company at once. This is really useful. We use this all the time because I might work with one person at a company, make a note on their record. Jeff or somebody else at 12-3 here might be working with a different contact at the company and put something on their record, and it's not always easy to check every record at once. So companies kind of make it easy to do things with that way. So I'm going to show you how we can link all of your contacts together into a company and how we can start, building this setup here. You can create a new company record the same way you would do to any ACT record. If I go to this new company button up top here, it's very similar to creating a new contact. I'm now on a blank record, and this is all very straightforward. I will go ahead and fill out a company info. If I can type this morning, I could fill out a phone number, and I can fill out an address, and that's all I'll do now for time's sake. Suite 204, city, state, zip. So here I have a blank company record, and I made one for 12-3. That's our company, and you'll notice that we don't have anybody linked in it. And that's okay, because your companies, again, exist as their own separate entity, their own records that are separate from contacts. So if you have a company that you do business with, but you don't actually have a contact name from that company yet, maybe you have some leads or somebody that you do cold calling to, or you don't have an individual name, this is actually how it should be set up. And now we can add and remove contacts. Let's say that I'm setting up and I already had contacts from 12-3 in my database. I would be able to add them into this list and associate or link them with this company with the Add or Remove Contacts button. I could go to my contact list here, find people that I'd like, and add them in. This is the poor way to do it. And so I'm only showing it to you because it exists, but it's not how we would normally go about doing it. But you can manually add in contacts into a company. But I'll show you the much better way that I prefer to make new contacts from a company. Is we can actually make now, we can create a contact record from this company information. I'll also fill out my website here to illustrate what's about to happen. If I have a company already made an act called 12-3, I can go up to Companies, and I can go to Create Contact from Company. This switches me over into the Contact view. It's creating a new contact, and it already filled out all of this information for me. It linked me to the company 12-3. It filled out the phone number, the website, and the address, but it left other information like a personal email and a mobile phone that's blank, because that's normally specific to an individual person. Each one's going to have their own unique info there. And so then I can go ahead and fill out myself and say Stephen Boulden and fill out the rest of my information here. This company name now is a nice hyperlink, so I can click on it and move right back to my company view. And now I can view everything right within companies. I can see, again, a consolidated view of notes and histories. If I had written them onto this database, I would be able to see all of the notes and histories at once for this whole company. This is really useful for when I work with you folks all the time. Sometimes I will call up and try to reach somebody who is now no longer with the company, or I get reached out to by somebody that I haven't worked with before, and I've already got all of your company information in my ACT database, but I don't have your record yet. So I would go and find your company record. I can say Create Contact from Company, and I could fill in a new contact very quickly and easily. Nice, complete record without having to fill out all of this information, look it up on my own. Now, a lot of you might be thinking that sounds pretty cool, but how do we go back and retroactively link all of these contacts together for the ones that you've already created and haven't been using companies in the past? For example, here we've got in their demo database, Charlie Allnut and Rose Sayre are both from River Rat Tours. So why don't we make a River Rat Tours company using this address information, and then we'll link them together. We can do this by going to their contact record, going to Contacts, and there's a Create Company from Contact. It's a two-way street that we can do this. Before we were creating contacts from a company record. As you can imagine, now we can create a company from a contact. We have River Rat Tours. It already pulled in and filled this information out for me. I'll go ahead and save that up. And it pulled in Charlie because I was looking at Charlie's record when I created this company. Now it did not pull in, what was that other person's name? Rose. Rose also works at River Rat Tours, but you'll notice she didn't get automatically linked. Her company is not a hyperlink, and her name did not appear in that company list. So what we can do is using this ellipsis here, this button that looks up my companies, I press it, ACT automatically found for me, hey, you have a company called River Rat Tours, and if I press OK, it's going to link Rose to that company now. Now she is linked in. If I click River Rat Tours, we have a company that I can now look at both contacts and navigate around ACT that way. This is really the best way to set it up. I know many people like to they like to have company records sometimes as contacts, and it works, but it's just not the ideal way that you'd want it set up. Again, contacts is for individual people, and companies is for an organization. I also find some people, particularly financial advisors, have a tendency to do this. They like to put multiple contacts within one contact record. They'll do something, you know, Mr. and Mrs. John and Jane Doe, and put that in as one contact name. That is really not the way that you should be doing it, because a contact is designed to be one individual person's record. What you could do is have John Doe and Jane Doe as separate contacts and link them together as a company called Mr. and Mrs. John and Jane Doe. Then you'd be able to keep each contact separate. You'd know who your histories and notes and emails were with. You could schedule events and calls and meetings with individuals from that group, but you would still be able to view a consolidated record there. I got a few more things to say about this, but I'm going to unmute for a moment just to open up for some questions. Do we have any questions at this point?
Stephen, to what extent is this available? Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, to what extent is this available with Act 2011?
Companies have been in Act for a very long time. So go ahead and open up your Act and look for the contacts and companies records down here in the left-hand navigation panel.
Yeah, I know the companies is there, but is all this this technique that you just showed us, should we be able to do this on 2011?
Yes, this has been in Act for a very long time. This create contact from company and create company from contact are both built into Act.
Thank you.
I will show you a neat feature now that was added. Hold on, before I move on, was there another question? Someone was going to speak up?
Yes, a lot of companies have go by different names, a legal name, a DBA name, or maybe several. You may have a guy, you know, has a legal name of Bob Smith, LLC, but he has a DBA activity that's Bob's Canoeing Adventures and Bob's Kayak Adventures, or different things. So you've got several different entities, these DBAs, with people who work for them, but actually they're part of the parent or part of Bob's, you know, legal company. So in situations like that, how would you organize that?
So we have a few ways that we could go about organizing that, and it's a good question. For example, I've worked with one company, Mass Mutual. They have offices and headquarters all over the country, but we like to associate some people that we work with from specific offices. We do create separate companies for those. Generally, a contact being linked to a company is a one-to-one relationship, or rather a one-to-many relationship, to be technical about it. A contact can only be linked to one company at a time, and so essentially it boils down to that you'd have to pick one. That if you wanted to link Bob, who has multiple DBAs, you'd have to pick one of his companies to link him as. There is also, you don't have to link every contact to a company. In fact, I generally don't do it unless there's at least two people. Otherwise, there's not a huge benefit to having a separate company record unless there's at least two people from an organization. So on a case-by-case basis, I would really pick the legal company name to make the record for, at least the one that you would use most commonly and primarily, and link him up that way. The one that you would normally fill out in his company record.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I see Jeff left a question here in the chat. He said, can you show us how to change a company name for a company that has several branches and has changed their name recently? It's a great question. I can actually change a company name very easily by editing this field. Let's go ahead and change River Rat Tours to, we'll just make it Rat Tours Incorporated. And if I save this up, Act asks me, would you like to update the contacts that are linked with the company with the changes you've made? I'll say yes, and now you'll see that Charlie and Rose both had their company name on their Act record was updated to reflect the new company name.
So just by making that change in the field?
Yes. So if maybe the whole company moved, maybe Rat Tours Incorporated now has a new address. They moved to a new area, so I will change 150 Lafayette Street to 200 Main Street, Suite 103. And they moved all the way from Baton Rouge, LA. Baton Rouge, LA, that's funny. But they're in Baton Rouge, Hawaii. And if I save that up and I'll say, yes, I want to update my contacts, it went ahead and made the change. The address fields on the contacts have all been changed now to reflect that. This is really useful, especially if you have dozens of contacts from one company. That changes all of them at once. Very convenient. Companies can also have their own custom fields. Perhaps, again, one of our custom fields that I use in my business is I want to know CRM system. What type of CRM? Do they use ACT, and what version of ACT? Or do they use one of our competitors' softwares? We have that right on the company, because normally that's a company-wide decision. We also like to know how many users they have. We have opt-ins for email, newsletter mailings. Any custom fields that are relevant to your industry, you can add to a company record as well. And you can even link them if you'd like to make to do that updating automatically to contact records as you go. Now here's a feature that was added in ACT version 16. So
Stephen, Stephen, it's Carpenter. Can I ask a question quickly? Some of our clients have consultants. They don't always stick with one company. Is there a way that you can manage that process within this company?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand.
So if there's an individual that is a consultant for a particular company, company X, River Rat Tours, you said, but then sometimes he works for another company called, whatever, 12 Tree Marketing. Can I link them to both or only one?
So that's a good question. I like to have that consultant doesn't actually work for either company. When I link somebody to a company, I want it to be the company they work for. In my tech world, we often cross paths with other IT groups around Buffalo. There's plenty of other people who help set up computers and do work that we don't necessarily do, but we are the ACT guys. And so I like to sometimes specify, Rigidized Metals is working with PCA Tech Group. What I would do is I would make your consultant his own record linked to his own company that he works for. But if you want to associate him, there is a tab here called Secondary Contacts within ACT. Now, actually, I don't want to do secondary contacts. That's something different. We want to do relationships. You could relate a contact to another contact. So I could say, Charlie Allnut here, I can relate him to, find the contact in my database. Maybe I'll say, Andy Boston is Charlie's lawyer, and I would link him over. And I can even say here in the details, I'll say Andy is Charlie's attorney. And so that's a relationships tab. This is it's a good question. It's just not really what we were covering today, but it's a great question. So yeah, we all want to learn. That's what the point is. So I would give, if Andy was an attorney, Andy would have his own contact record that would be linked to his firm, would have his own company record, and then I could relate it to River Rat Tours that they work with that they have that business relationship. You could even fill out this relationship field as well to say client, friend, anything of that sort. Those are all customizable.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I want to show you a feature that was added here in ACT v16. So this is available for ACT v16, 17, and the new version 18. I'll have this ability now to do something called automated company management. This is in your preferences. If you're taking notes on this right now, make a note that says make a backup first, because you'll always want to make a backup before you do this. ACT can automatically create companies for you from contacts. We saw earlier how I went to my contact list and I identified Charlie and Rose that were two contacts from the same company, but there was no company that was linked. And I went through the process of manually creating a company from a contact and linking them together. They added a feature that ACT will go through all of your contacts all at once and automatically create companies for you and link contacts to them. It's called company creation. If the value here is by default set to 0, that means that it's turned off. But what this number that we choose, I'll just read the description, says create a new company when this many contacts have the same company name. If it is set to 0, companies are not automatically created. So we could tell ACT, if you ever find 2 contacts in the database who have an identical company name, and I think it actually also looks for an identical address or state or zip code as well to make sure that it's not 2 companies that have the same name in different areas. But if you find 2 contacts who have the same company name, create a company record and automatically link them both to it. And this will happen automatically in the future so that if you ever did add a new contact that worked at the same company, you would be able to, it would create it for you. The reason we don't always turn this on, it's just a word of caution, is that it only looks for very literal, the companies need to be the same. It will look for contacts, like right here I'm selecting George Bailey, Mary, Peter, and Clarence. They all work at Liberty Savings and Loan. If I turned on that feature, it would create a company record called Liberty Savings and Loan with this address, and it would pull in all that information, and it would link it, and it would be very good. But let's imagine that somebody, when they went to create Clarence's record, didn't say Liberty Savings and Loan. They said Liberty Savings and Loan without an ampersand. They went ahead and they put in an and there. Now when we go back, and if you were doing that automated company management, ACT is very, very literal, as computers tend to be, and it would only detect these 3 to be in a company, and Clarence would be missed. This happens a lot if people say, you know, my company is 12-3 Marketing, comma, Inc. It has a backslash in there within the name. It also has a period at the end. And maybe somebody else added, you know, Jeff as being 12-3, and they added me as 12-3 Marketing, Inc. ACT might not pick up on that. So the automated company management is actually, it works very well. I do like that feature, but you got to make sure that you have good data to give it. As the saying goes, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And so you want to make sure that all of your companies are kind of edited to be consistent and similar before we turn on the automated company management.
Stephen, would that work if you're upgrading to a new version of ACT and you're putting in old data? Will it fix the old data?
Yes. When you upgrade to a new version of ACT, your database and all of the records that you have in there stay the same. Your data itself does not go anywhere. It just would be opened and updated in the newer version of ACT, and you could create those company records. You do not lose any data in an upgrade. You certainly would not want to start from a clean database.
So I'm thinking the best thing to do is like just go through your data, make sure all the similar companies have the same, you know, they're typed the same, and then just let the new version of ACT create the companies for you.
Yes, that'd be a great way to do it. And if you didn't want to have to upgrade, you could manually go through the contacts, as I did before, and go to Create Company from Contact, and then link them all the way that you saw me do. Again, if I wanted to create one for Liberty Savings and Loan, I'll repeat that step again. I create a company. It made one in here for me, and it added Peter. I would go back into my contacts and find, here's Mary. I'll click this ellipsis, and it automatically found the company for me, and I say, OK. Here's George, and I can say OK. And actually, I would be able to link Clarence as well, but ACT didn't find it for me. It said I didn't find that one because he doesn't have the ampersand in his name. But I could link to it, and now it corrects the name for me. So that's a way that you could do it manually. I know that many of you have databases with thousands of contacts, and doing all of that manually does not sound like a fun time. We are wrapping up on time. I like to keep these meetings to 30 minutes or less, but what I will show you, if you do plan to go through your database and fix all of your company names, under your contacts, we can go into the list view. We can view all contacts. That's what I'm looking at here. And we can actually go into edit mode. It's a little checkbox right here that says edit mode. And what this does now when I change my list is if I click on these fields, you'll see how it automatically, I can actually change right from here. So I notice Hershey chocolate, they have 2 spaces here. I'll get rid of that space, and I can press enter and move down. You might be able to edit up your database a lot faster this way. If you wanted to correct addresses, I noticed this Mandrake think tank, for example, Lionel, Merkin, and Buck. You know, Lionel and Merkin both have their information filled out, but Buck is missing an address. So I can go and edit right here from this view. This just saves you a little bit of time rather than going into the details of every contact every time to edit it up. It saves your screen a few clicks and flashes and load times. And then I can press edit mode again to get me out, and I'm back in normal.
Oh, that's good.
Yep, it's a really handy way if you want to see all of your contacts at once and just go into edit mode to try to touch them up and clean them. Edit mode is a nice, faster way to do that rather than double-clicking and going into each one individually and then backing out. You can save some time that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're coming up on 10 a.m. here. I like to keep these brief, but I would like to take any questions. What can I help you guys with?
This was amazing because I've been using ACT for 100 million years and I've never used companies.
Yeah, no, I definitely like companies. I really do use it all the time. If you're not seeing the benefits of why you'd want to do this, for example, I'll be working with one of my customers and I need access to their server, and I'm trying to find out, you know, what is the username or their credentials for their server that we set up on this system 2 years ago, and I'm not seeing it anywhere in their notes. What I would do is I'd go and check their company and check the company notes, and then I could see all of them at once for all the contacts, because that note that I'm looking for might just be hiding in a different record. It really does help a lot to be able to do things that way.
The only
you can
rub,
also do, yeah, sorry.
the only rub I see is that sometimes a company, the same company, has multiple locations.
Mm-hmm. I did not explain sub-companies here. Here's an example of a sub-company. You see how it has the plus sign next to it. The overall parent company is called CH Holding, and you could have, you know, if you had multiple branches or that function as their own companies really, or as their own separate offices, you can create sub-companies. If I right-click on one and I say, oh, they call them divisions. I'm sorry, I'm confusing my terminologies here. In groups, they're called groups and subgroups. In companies, they're called divisions. But if I right-click on Circle Photography and say New Division, it really is just giving me a blank slate, because this division of Circle Photography probably has an entirely different phone number and address. Division 1, give them a new address, save that up. And you'll see that now it's kind of a subgroup underneath Circle Division 1, and I would link them to there. So every office could be linked to its own company, but then for organization's sake, it's filed under a parent company. From a functional standpoint, there's really no other benefit to doing this. This Division 1 could just be its own top-level company up here, but it helps for organization to help you kind of visualize the different subgroups there.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, could you just show us once again how you got to that menu where you created the companies?
Yeah, certainly. I'm here on in ACT.
Yeah.
Are you talking about creating a company from a contact?
Yeah. I mean, I can see I have all my list views, and if I wanted to create a company for all the lists, what's the quickest way of doing that?
I will mute that there. So let me find another good option here. So here's Harry Lime. Yep,
yeah.
You can tell quickly because his name is not
right.
hyperlinked that he is not in a company. So I would go into Harry's record.
Yeah.
Go to Contacts, and I would create company from Contacts. The very bottom option here.
Got it.
And that creates it. It links him up. I can save that. I don't need to do this ellipsis thing to link him because he's already linked up to a company.
Okay.
And that's how I would do that. And then I would go back to his other friends here, Holly and Anna. I would click on Holly. So now I have a company called Parisian Publishing, but I would press the ellipsis. Act brings up this window with all of my companies in it, and it found this, and I press OK, and she is linked, and I would repeat again.
Got it. Okay.
And it's handy because then in the future, whenever I call Parisian Publishing and maybe Holly, moved on to bigger and better things and doesn't work there any longer, but I would like to add a new contact, I can go the reverse direction and go companies and create a contact from company. And now I'm back into the contact record here, and I could have Mike. I can't think of a name. Mike for Jackal. That's how I would be able to create a contact from the company, and he is all linked in.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I hope that this was useful for you. If you have any questions or concerns, my name is Stephen Boulden. Jeff's son here. I'll type my email into the chat box for your reference. If you have anything that you'd like to send. Oh, I'm sorry. I was missing some contacts here. Okay. Some chat. Okay, good. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Goodbye.